it's Brett from oddcopter.com again. I've now received another box of parts from HobbyKing to try and complete the handheld gimbal. You can see over there I've started to put it together. You have to have all the rest of these parts to actually complete the job. And just a little overview, they all came in that box. The only complaint I had, I guess, was that one of the motors was on top of the control board. And you know, I'm hoping it wasn't damaged. Otherwise, you know, it kind of came in the standard HobbyKing box. I ordered 3 motors, so I have those, and that's what's required for your yaw and then your pitch and your roll of your stabilizer. And the control board that processes all of the logic that it receives, or processes all of the signals, I guess, that it receives from the sensors. You've got this little sensor that comes with it. Since I'm not going to be mounting this on a quadcopter, I have to have my own gyroscope, accelerometer, sensor board to feed in, and basically the board's going to cancel out all of the movements that are being made by me and by my hand to keep the camera stable. And there's the board with the processor that does all that here on the left. This separate board, this is to control the yaw movements. Just the basic board controls the pitch and the roll axis, and then the separate board controls the yaw. And like I said, there's the little sensor board. One of the things you'll notice on these boards is, when you look at them, is that all of the pin headers that are required to get everything up and running and connected are not there. So I had to order some extra pin headers. I've got, straight, 90-degree angle, all kinds of pin headers there. In fact, that's a lot of pin headers. They cost me about $10 off of eBay. I'll put the link to where those can be purchased on oddcopter.com. So there's going to be a little bit of soldering to do. In fact, you can see there on the sensor board, there are no pin headers there, so I'm going to have to do some of that soldering. And it's pretty detailed soldering. I've done it before. It's a little tricky. Compared to soldering just regular power wires and connectors and harnesses, when you start soldering a PCB or pin headers onto a PCB, it's a little trickier. So I'm hoping I don't screw that up. The wires that came with it, there are 8 wires. Those should be sufficient to connect the main board to the sensor and to the yaw board, the 3rd axis board there. So that's fine. What isn't there, there's really no connector that comes on the motor to connect the motors to these different boards. So what I'm planning on doing is, I've got a lot of these. This just is stuff that I have, but I didn't really see it on the list of parts from HobbyKing. But I have a lot of these little servo wires, and I'm planning on just pulling the wires out and then using these female 2.4 millimeter connectors to attach them to the phase wires on the motors to hook back up to the board. I think that covers most of it. There's also one other thing I ordered, is a little push button switch. I ordered that separately, and I'll also put the link for that on Oddcopter. I know there's a feature with this Alex Mose board to where you can switch between different options and configurations by using that push button while you're using the gimbal. In fact, if you watch the HobbyKing video, you can see them doing that. Same thing on the pin headers. There's no pin headers installed for that push button, so I'll have to solder those in. There's also as far as soldering, there's going to be a solder connection, some kind of connection of a harness to power the board with a battery, with a LiPo battery. So I'll have to figure out what I want to do on that. I've got, luckily, various power harnesses and connectors that I can use as I go along. I'll probably add parts to the list that are needed as I detail how to build this thing. They also listed, and this is very important, in fact, they listed these screws. I can't remember the exact size of them. Under the gimbal, there's on the HobbyKing website. There's a whole list of parts, and this is an important thing to order. These are extra screws to be able to attach the motors to the gimbal. Each motor comes with 4 screws, and there's 4 smaller screws that come with the motor on and make the where you attach the motor on this side, but it also has to be attached. It has to be attached on both sides. You can kind of see here it's attached. This one's attached on one side, and the screws to attach on this other side. This is the stationary side. Those screws don't come with the motor, so these extra screws have to be, and I'll also detail that on the website, and you can find them listed on the HobbyKing website, but those are a must. If you don't have those, there's no way to attach the, I believe they're maybe 3mm screws, something like that, to the, no way to attach it to the gimbal. One of the things I noticed also is the screws are really longer than what you need to get a tight fit. I tried to put one of the motors on there and it's loose, so I'm going to have to figure out some kind of spacer in there to fill that gap. One option might be, and I'm thinking about this, is just to grind these screws down and make them shorter. I've got various other materials that I might be able to use as a spacer to tighten that up. They suggest, I mean, they list these little washers, and that may be what they're suggesting there, is that you use these little washers to tighten up those screws and the motors, but I only ordered one of those, and there are only 10 washers, so I'm probably going to come up with some better idea on that. The board itself, I'll zoom in over here. I think these two pieces are where you're going to connect, or where I'm going to connect the board, and I'll probably use. They also suggest these nylon risers, so I ordered those, but there's not any nuts that come with those. Again, I've got an assortment of those that I just use to build quadcopters, so I should be okay. I'll try to list the specifics as I go along, but nylon risers will be required to connect the board to the gimbal. I think that's pretty much all I have at this point. Just kind of an overview of parts that I'm going to need. I may have left something out that certainly isn't complete, but as I go along, I will try to finalize a complete list of what's required. I guess of all the things that scares me a little bit the most would be the fact that, and also a thing that has to be ordered, are these pin headers, and the fact that those have to be soldered onto the board to complete the project. It would be a lot easier if HobbyKing, shipped these things out with all those pin headers soldered on already. But that wraps it up for now, and follow me along on the on oddcopter.com, and I'll try to complete this build in the next few weeks and get this gimbal up and running, stabilizing a DSLR. Thanks for watching. Bye.